Welcome to the Inner Essence, a space of mindfulness, spiritual awakening, and reconnecting with your true self. Breath, be present, and begin your journey with it.
Stop for a moment. You've been trying to shift your life, affirmations, visualizations, energy rituals, but the scene never changes. That's because you never changed the lens. Observation is creation's root command. Your life doesn't follow your thoughts. It mirrors how you observe. As long as your gaze remains the same, the world will keep replaying the same story under a different light. Observation isn't passive. It's the silent code shaping every frame of your life. Each time you see through the same emotional lens, you rewrite the same program. The universe doesn't move by your wishes, but by what you call real. You stare at the screen, hoping the film will change, forgetting you're the projector. The moment you see that, you touch the source, the power that has been shaping everything quietly through your gaze. The loop of familiar observation begins quietly, almost invisibly. You wake, move through your day, respond to people and circumstances, and believe you're reacting to what's happening now. But what you're really seeing isn't the present. It's a reflection of accumulated perceptions. Each belief, memory, and emotional scar has turned into a lens, bending the light of reality into shapes you recognize. You call it truth, but it's mostly repetition. Observation is not the act of seeing what's there. It's the act of confirming what you already believe exists. That's why change feels so hard. You can rearrange external details, new job, new partner, new city. But if the observation remains the same, the experience reassembles itself with new faces and the same undertone. It's like walking through a room where the furniture keeps shifting, but the lighting never changes. Everything feels slightly different, yet hauntingly familiar. Your mind seeks safety in familiarity. Even painful patterns feel safer than the unknown. The body associates known emotions, resentment, anxiety, disappointment, with continuity. To break the loop, it isn't enough to think differently, you must see differently. The angle of observation is the pivot point of reality. When you look from the same height of emotion, you'll always get the same horizon. Imagine your awareness as a camera fixed in place. You can redecorate the set, change the actors, rewrite the lines, but if the camera never moves, the frame remains the same. You watch your own life through that unmoving lens and wonder why nothing really evolves. The irony is that you are both the filmmaker and the watcher, trapped in a movie you don't realize you're still projecting. The first step toward resetting observation is to notice how automatic your seeing has become, how quickly the mind labels, judges, and categorizes every scene before you've even felt it. The loop thrives on that speed. Familiar observation runs on habit, and habit is the enemy of awareness. When you pause, when you truly look without rushing to name, you interrupt the feedback circuit that keeps old versions of reality alive. It's in those pauses that cracks begin to form in the pattern. You might sense a moment of stillness, a strange neutrality, an instant when what you're seeing feels almost new. That's the doorway. Each time you enter it, even for a breath, the field begins to lose its old code. The emotional filters start to loosen. You no longer see through memory but through presence. And presence has no past. This loop isn't a punishment, it's a mirror. It shows you how powerful your observation truly is. The question isn't whether the world can change, it's whether you can look at it without expecting it to repeat. When that happens, even subtly, the film begins to rewrite itself, not through effort, but through vision finally freed from its own reflection. Every act of observation programs the field. It isn't a poetic metaphor, it's the literal architecture of experience. The moment you observe, you collapse infinite probabilities into a single outcome. You think you are witnessing something that already exists, but observation itself is the act that defines what will appear next. Reality isn't a stage waiting for you to arrive. It is a mirror waiting for you to look. When you gaze at life through fear, doubt, or judgment, that emotional charge becomes the coding language of creation. The field doesn't interpret your words, it reads the vibration of your focus. Each judgment, each worry, each silent expectation sends a line of energetic instruction. Recreate this. The universe, obedient to coherence, responds with precision. It reflects Not what you wish to believe, but what you continually confirm. You can sense this mechanism in subtle ways. When you expect someone to disappoint you, their smallest gesture feels like proof. When you anticipate failure, coincidences begin aligning with that narrative. It is not superstition, it is resonance. Observation organizes the random into patterns that match the observer's emotional frequency. What looks like chance is often confirmation of unseen attention. This is why intention alone rarely transforms life. Intention spoken from an unchanged observation is only decoration on an old command line. You can affirm abundance, yet observe scarcity. You can visualize love, yet keep looking for evidence of rejection. The field doesn't respond to contradiction. It follows coherence. When the signal of your observation is clear, events reorganize around it with startling speed. Think of reality as an ocean sensitive to vibration. Every glance, every interpretation sends a ripple. Some ripples are weak, lost in interference. Others are consistent, forming standing waves that shape entire experiences. The stronger your emotional recognition of something as real, the more the field condenses around it. That is why repetition of observation creates gravity. What you look at long enough becomes dense enough to be lived. To shift the code, you must become aware of what your observation is broadcasting right now. Notice how you tend to look for proof of what you already feel. Notice how subtle tension in the body corresponds to specific themes, lack, danger, rejection, and how the outer world seems to echo those sensations. This is not a curse, but a perfect feedback system. The field doesn't punish, it mirrors. Once you realize observation is an active command, a quiet responsibility arises. You begin to see that neutrality is creative power. The less you project your past into the scene, the more fluid the field becomes. Pure observation doesn't force reality. It allows it to reorganize itself naturally. The universe is not waiting for your struggle. It is waiting for your clarity. The moment your gaze changes tone, the pattern obeys. You believe you're observing reality, but most of the time you're observing memory. The lens through which you see the world was forged by emotions that never completed their cycle. Every unresolved moment, grief, guilt, fear, anger, settled into the nervous system as a vibrational residue. That residue colors perception. It's why two people can witness the same event and live two entirely different realities. Observation filtered through emotion doesn't reveal the present. It replays the past disguised as now. The emotional body is the most honest recorder you have. It stores not the facts of what happened, but the frequency of how it felt. Each sensation, tightness in the chest, heaviness in the stomach, pressure behind the eyes, is a signal of an old observation still looping. When you meet life from that place, you aren't responding to what's unfolding. You're reacting to what once hurt and still echoes. The field reads that echo as instruction and organizes experience to validate it. Fear observed becomes a fearful world. Doubt observed becomes delayed outcomes. We are taught to control emotion, to replace it with positive thoughts. But emotion isn't the enemy, it's information. The moment you suppress it, you lock the filter in place. To reset observation, you must first allow emotion to surface without naming it wrong. Watch the trembling in your body as if it were weather passing through the sky. Don't interpret it. Witness it. The very act of seeing without resistance transforms vibration back into light. Observation filtered by emotion is like sunlight passing through stained glass. The light itself is pure, but the color of the glass changes everything it touches. The glass is your memory. It isn't about destroying it. It's about realizing that you are not the glass. You are the light. When that recognition stabilizes, perception begins to clear. The world regains dimension. Faces appear softer, time slows, and your own breath becomes evidence of presence. This clarity isn't mystical, it's mechanical. When emotional charge dissolves, neural patterns relax, hormonal tension subsides, and new sensory data finally enters awareness. The brain stops recycling its predictions and starts receiving reality again. That's when synchronicities arise, not because magic appeared, but because distortion faded. The field is constantly coherent, Only the observer's emotion distorts its signal. Right now, pause for a moment. Notice what emotion colors your observation at this exact second. Is it anticipation, worry, longing, gratitude? Feel it directly, without a story. The feeling itself is the lens. If you can see the lens, you're already bigger than it. That's the first reset. If something in this reflection stirred recognition in you, let it mark the beginning of your new observation. Take a breath, feel the stillness behind it, and write in the comments, "I see through clear glass." Let that be your quiet declaration that the filter has begun to fade, and that your world is ready to meet you without distortion. Resetting your observation is not about adding another method or concept to your spiritual toolkit. It is about subtracting. It begins with the simple, radical act of seeing without labeling. Most people look at the world through a constant stream of mental commentary, naming, judging, comparing. That chatter keeps the lens active, projecting familiar interpretations onto neutral phenomena. The reset happens when that commentary pauses, even briefly, and awareness stands unfiltered. Pure observation is not a technique, but a return. It is the moment the observer remembers itself as separate from what is observed. When you stop trying to fix what you see, and instead witness it as it is, you release the emotional glue that binds perception to the past. The nervous system begins to quiet. Breathing slows. The inner dialogue fades to a hum. In that silence, reality becomes fluid again, no longer locked into the old coordinates of identity. To reset observation, you do not force the mind into stillness. You allow everything to be as it is. Notice the impulse to control, to define, to categorize. Each impulse is an echo of fear, an attempt to maintain the known. Instead of fighting it, you acknowledge it. You feel it move through the body. You realize that the need to control perception is itself a form of observation, one that traps you in repetition. The zero point of observation emerges when there is no resistance left in looking. You can observe anger without wanting to dissolve it, sadness without needing to transform it, confusion without demanding clarity. The power lies in the neutrality of awareness itself. That neutrality doesn't mean indifference, it means vastness. From that space, emotion, thought, and sensation become weather patterns passing through an infinite sky. In this state, the distinction between inner and outer begins to blur. The boundaries that once felt rigid, me versus them, desire versus fear, success versus failure, soften. You start to notice that every event simply appears within observation, like ripples on the same surface. When there's no longer a preference for what should appear, the surface becomes mirror clear. Reality stops echoing the old story and begins to respond to the openness of your gaze. This reset is less of an achievement and more of a remembrance. You are not learning how to observe. You are remembering that you have always been the observer. What clouded that recognition was identification with thoughts, roles, and emotions. When those identifications loosen, what remains is a still presence that has never been touched by what it witnessed. From that presence, perception renews itself naturally. And so the act of resetting observation is both a death and a birth. It's the death of interpretation and the birth of clarity. In the gap between thoughts, you can feel the field recalibrating, listening again. It doesn't need direction or effort. The very stillness of awareness is the instruction. In that quiet command, reality begins to write a new code, perfectly aligned with the purity of your seeing. Every time you reset your observation, you reset time itself. It sounds abstract, but it is the most practical metaphysical truth. What you call time is the continuity of observation, the unbroken chain of how you've been seeing. Past and future are not external locations. They are sustained by the observer's habit of perceiving through memory. When the lens clears, that continuity collapses, and what remains is the immediacy of presence, which is timeless. Psychological time is born when observation fuses with identity. The moment you say, "I am the one to whom this happened," you begin to carry the echo of that happening forward. Each time you look at life, you compare it to what was or to what might be. That comparison stretches consciousness into linearity. The reset cuts this tension. When you see without reference to before or after, perception detaches from the calendar. The world still moves, clocks still turn, but internally something becomes weightless. This unbinding of time has a tangible feel. The body softens, thought slows, the air around you seems clearer, and ordinary moments acquire depth. You are no longer chasing outcomes or repairing histories. You are simply witnessing the unfolding of phenomena as if for the first time. The familiar suddenly gleams with strangeness, a sound, a texture, a breath. When observation is fresh, even silence feels alive. From the perspective of physics, this makes sense. Observation determines collapse, the shift from probability to actuality. When observation carries memory, it selects the same set of probabilities, maintaining the illusion of linear time. But when observation is pure, free from attachment, it opens to a wider spectrum of possibility. The field, no longer bound by expectation, reorganizes itself beyond your personal timeline. That is why moments of deep awareness often feel as if they stretch. Seconds expand into eternity, and events align with an intelligence that isn't sequential. In the collapse of psychological time, suffering loses its anchor. Pain depends on continuity, the memory of hurt projected into the anticipation of more. Without that thread, the mind cannot sustain the narrative of loss or fear. This isn't denial, it's precision. When observation stops referencing what was, it also stops constructing what could go wrong. What remains is the experience of being, unmediated, unguarded, whole. Many traditions have tried to name this experience: presence, eternity, the now. But naming reduces it. What actually occurs is simpler. The observer ceases to drag yesterday into today. Without that drag, reality updates instantaneously. The field is perpetually new. It is only the observer who ages within it. When you return to pure observation, time folds into a single pulse of existence. To live from that pulse is to move freely through the world without the weight of sequence. You still plan, remember, create, but not from compulsion. Actions arise as clear responses to the moment, not as attempts to escape or repeat. Observation unbound by memory dissolves the timeline of suffering and reveals life as it truly is. A single, continuous act of awareness discovering itself again and again outside of time. When you begin to see differently, reality reorganizes itself without effort. Transformation does not require force. It requires a new point of observation. The moment perception shifts, the structure of events adjusts to reflect it. What was once a problem dissolves not because the circumstances vanished, but because the observer no longer occupies the same position in consciousness. Reality updates instantly when the command line of observation is rewritten. This rebirth of reality feels subtle at first, almost invisible. Nothing grand announces itself. You might wake one morning and notice that a long-standing tension has lost its meaning. The world around you hasn't changed dramatically, yet your response to it is softer, clearer, unbound by the familiar reflexes that once defined you. This is how the field renews itself, through coherence between your seeing and your being. What you no longer confirm with your attention ceases to exist in your experiential world. The mechanism behind this renewal is not mystical. It's coherence seeking equilibrium. Every consistent observation stabilizes a pattern in the field. When that observation resets, the pattern dissolves and reorganizes to match the new tone of awareness. The energy that once sustained an identity, a conflict, or a story becomes free to express itself in higher order forms. It is as if the architecture of your life continually rebuilds itself in response to the frequency of your perception. This process reveals that change is not something you make happen. It is something that happens through you when you stop resisting. When observation returns to neutrality, it becomes a conduit for intelligence rather than a barrier. The same mind that once fragmented experience into struggle now functions as a lens for clarity. You start to witness how every situation carries its own solution, how every apparent obstacle is only a dense form of unexamined perception waiting to be seen differently. In that space, gratitude arises naturally, not as a practice, but as the recognition of harmony. You understand that life never withheld anything from you. It only mirrored the angle from which you looked. As your observation clears, the mirror becomes transparent, and you see through it into the living field of possibility. Each person, each moment, each sound begins to appear as part of a unified choreography, responding to the rhythm of your awareness. This is what it means for reality to be reborn. The new world does not replace the old. It emerges from the same fabric once distorted by misunderstanding. You realize that creation has always been immediate, intimate, and self-correcting. When the observer renews, the field listens, reconfigures, and aligns itself to the clarity of the gaze. There is no effort in this, only correspondence. The eye that truly sees becomes the axis around which the universe rearranges. It no longer demands change, it embodies it. From that still center, life unfolds with precision and quiet wonder, responding faithfully to the purity of observation that has finally remembered its power to create by simply seeing anew. The field cannot offer a new life while you keep observing through the old one. When you reset your observation, you grant reality permission to evolve. No force, no command, just a clear gaze meeting existence without history. In that silence, everything rearranges. The world doesn't change because you try. It changes because you finally see it for what it is, alive, responsive, and waiting for your new sight. Close your eyes for a moment. Stop naming. Stop reaching. Just observe the stillness behind your breath. That pause is the reset. Feel how the noise fades when you simply see. If something within you shifted, let it be known. Write in the comments, "I see differently now." And if this message spoke to you, subscribe and stay close. There's more to explore from this new way of seeing.